Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Darla Hanley, and I'm the Dean of the Professional Education Division at Berklee College of Music in beautiful Boston, Massachusetts. We are here today to have the first of a three-part series of panels that we are calling Music in the Age of COVID. Each panel is designed to focus on a specific part of the world and bring people together to share experience and engagement that supported and advanced music making during a global pandemic. Over the past year, we have certainly all learned many things. We have adapted, we have adjusted, we have created, and along the way, we have found new ways to connect, new ways to make music, and new ways to share and monetize it. Our panels are sponsored by the Berklee Music Business Management Department, Professional Music Department, Office of Global Initiatives, and are made possible due to the generous foundation, the Tonya and Vladimir Kuliev Cultural Heritage Fund, with their generous donation. Thanks to all of my Berklee colleagues on the planning committee, and a special shout out to Professor Ralph Jacques and to Assistant Chair Chris Wares. And of course, additionally, we thank Barry Lynn from the AVK Fund for supporting this work. We are going to have a wonderful conversation, and our panels today are moderated by the impressive, the fabulous, the extraordinary Tonya Butler, Chair of Music Business Management, and the unbelievably global world traveler, Jason Camelio, AVP of Berklee's Global Initiatives. Tonya, I turn things over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hanley. I really appreciate it. You know what I love is hearing an introduction and thinking, is that me she's talking about? Well, thank you so much to the fabulous Dr. Darla Hanley. Hey, everybody, welcome, welcome, welcome. So much for being here. If I could get the spotlight so everyone could see my fabulous face, that would be terrific. Thank you so much. Hey, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you are all over the world. Once again, my name is Tonya Butler. I am chair of the Music Business Management Department here at Berklee College of Music. And welcome to Music in the Age of COVID, best practices from all over the world. And today we are on the continent of Africa and we are in India. And we will be talking about best practices, meaning really how are artists and executives surviving with their music during this global pandemic. And we have so many things we want you to take away with you this evening. We hope you learn, we hope you are inspired, we hope you will be empowered. With that said, feel free to drop your name into the chat, and in particular, where are you from? Let us know who you are, where you're from, where you're joining us from, so that we can see the names and eventually the faces of everyone from all over the world. Thank you so much. Also, if you have a question for any of the panelists at any time, feel free to drop that in the chat as well. We have our fabulous webmasters, Sarah, Jill Marie, and Andrew backstage, who will curate your questions and make sure that Jason and I get them so that we can answer them live. And not only that, you will be spotlighted if you so choose to answer to ask and have your question answered live on the air. So thank you so much for being here. Jason, do you have any opening words?
No, it's really a joy to be here. We have some incredible panelists who we're really looking forward to their insights and their expertise in this discussion. And it's a discussion, it's a dialogue. We really want to have an interchange with our participants. And this is being recorded, so you're going to be able to go back and take a look at it after the session, because I'm hoping that I know there's going to be a lot of great information that's shared here. And if there are folks that that are colleagues or friends of yours, or maybe students of yours, if you're a teacher and they didn't get the opportunity to join us, they'll be able to go back and take a look at this as well. So go ahead, Tonya, please.
All right, thank you. So in order to get started, I want to make sure that I give a wonderful introduction to each of our guests. And first and foremost, I want to introduce you to Louise Carver. Now, Louise, and you know what? I have an affinity for Louise for this reason. Although we just met today, my mother's name is Louise.
Yeah,
so hopefully you and I will get, hopefully you and I will get along much better.
Oh, I know we will.
Louise was born in Cape Town, South Africa. She's a folk rock singer, songwriter, and a pianist. And she began playing the piano at the age of 11 and received her first recording contract at the age of 15. She has an honors degree, and I love to make sure that I point out our guest's educational background so that everyone knows that not only are you an artist and an entertainer, but you're also an educated woman. She has an honors degree in politics, philosophy, and economics from the University of Cape Town. And her first debut single was released when she was 17 years old. It was called It Don't Matter, which became an instant hit and reached 3rd position on the South African national charts. Her debut album, Mirrors and Windows, delivered another top 10 hit, Falling for You. Soon after, Louise caught the attention of legendary deep house producer Kenny Hawks in London, who worked with her on her track Play the Game, which went to #1 in Europe. And due to the success of Play the Game, Sony UK licensed her song I'd Say Yes, which again went to #1 in Europe, Russia, and South Africa, and is still a favorite on the dance scene worldwide. Now, I would love to just read off the entire litany of Louise's #1 hits, because she has continued to make music and release albums and top the charts for the past 20 years. But some of the highlights of her career include being nominated for a South African Music Award. And for those of you in the United States, that's like our Grammy Awards. So she was nominated under the category of Best Adult Contemporary Album for her second full-length album, Silent Scream. She was nominated for 2 South African Music Awards, Best Female and Best Adult Contemporary Album for her 3rd studio album, Saved by the Moonlight. She was nominated for Record of the Year nomination for her hit, Didn't Mean to Call. She was nominated for 2 more South African Music Awards, Best Female Artist and Best Adult Contemporary Album for her Home Tour Live album. 4 more nominations, Best Female, Best Adult Contemporary, Song of the Year, for her #1 single, Warrior, off of her Look to the Edge album, and Remix of the Year for the song These Days. And listen to this, not only is she an established musician, but she took home the award for, and I'm getting in this category next year, Most Glamorous Woman in South Africa.
One more. Stretchy pants for me, I tell you.
From Glamour Magazine, South Africa. More recently, she teamed up with US DJ Joe Bermudez, and her single Sunrise took the #1 spot on the Billboard Dance Club Play chart. And her second single with Joe, entitled Crazy Enough, once again reached the #1 spot on the Billboard Club Dance charts. Right now, she's working on her 7th studio album. I am so excited to bring to you today, Miss Louise Carver.
Thank you very much. I've been around for a long time, so when you condense it, it sounds way more impressive than it is. It's a long
and you notice, Louise, I didn't put in any years. I didn't say what year.
Definitely not. Let's keep it tight.
Jason?
Louise, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you for joining us today. And it's an honor for me to introduce an amazing artist. Jacques Murigande is known as the Mighty Popo, and he's a hugely influential artist in Rwanda and beyond. He was born to Rwandan parents, but began his life in Burundi before immigrating to Canada, where he established himself on the blues scene. Growing up, Popo, he was hearing all kinds of music, contemporary music, traditional music from East and Central Africa on the streets, in the clubs, in the homes of friends and family, on the radio and recordings, and his deep influence from around the world in his music. He's toured North America, Europe, Canada, and in the United States as a bluesman. He's played reggae, he's played R&B from Halifax to Vancouver and all the way down to New Orleans. And he's led the house band in the 1998 Pan-African Dance Festival in Kigali. Popo is also a member of the 2004 Juno Award-winning African Guitar Summit, and he performed at the Canadian edition of Bob Geldof's International Live 8 concert. And there's an EMI DVD on this out there that you can check out. You should definitely check out his music. It's fantastic. He returned to Rwanda in 2012, and he actually founded an amazing festival, Kigali Up, which one of these days, Popo, I'm going to get there, man, to hang with you, be at that festival. And in recent months, I've been connecting with you as well on the incredible work that you're doing at the Rwanda School of Music and Creative Arts. And our good friend, Joey Blake, has been there with you during the pandemic and doing awesome work with all of the students that you have there. Sir, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Great to meet you all. Thank you very much. Really good to be here and meeting amazing people.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. Our next guest is Mr. Godwin Tom, founder of the Music Business Academy for Africa. Godwin came to us through a friend of mine, Miss Johnny Walker. She was senior vice president under Russell Simmons at Def Jam for 15 years. She knows everybody on the planet, so she thought that Godwin would make a magnificent addition to her panel. And he will, because we try to make sure that we give all perspective. So we have Louise and the Mighty Popo as our artists, right? But we also have an executive because Godwin has over 12 years of experience as a talent manager and a business development executive, and over 18 years of experience in the industry overall as an artist manager, a talent manager, and he also has practical experience at the management level for marketing, public relations, image consulting, branding, and publishing. So in other words, he does it all. He brings professionalism to the entertainment industry with an understanding of the demands of the business environment. Over the years, he successfully worked with talents such as WizKid, Davido, Waje, M.I., and if I don't pronounce them all right, artists, please don't get mad. Wande Cole, Bez, Ice Prince, Show Them Camp, and many, many others. His body of work has spanned across tourism, branding and marketing, media events, and sports marketing, and has put him in contact with top African brands such as Globacom, Diola, Sego, Diamond Bank, Sterling Bank, and some international brands such as BT, Nokia, Pepsi, and others. He's dedicated the last 4 years of his career in the development and training of future stakeholders and leaders of the entertainment industry through his music business programs. The most recent being the one that he just concluded, the Music Business Academy for Africa, which was sponsored by Sterling Bank. And a success story, the Academy registered over 140 students from over 6 African countries for the 3-month online program. And I'm going to give Godwin the opportunity to plug the program a little bit toward the end of our session. He's also authored a book, or an actual ebook series called Journey of a Learner. And it's a 12-part ebook series about navigating the African entertainment industry. So I am so proud and so happy to welcome Mr. Godwin Tom. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm humbled and honored to be here. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Greg, Todd, and Godwin, thank you, sir. And our fourth panelist or artist that's joining us today is a Berklee graduate. He's a fantastic guitarist, producer, engineer. I've been honored to know him now. Wow, since you were in Boston, sir. It's been a few years that we've had the opportunity to work together. And in one of the exciting stories is Aditya Balani. He and his brother actually helped Berklee with our major sort of push into India, starting, probably a good 12, 13 years ago. Aditya Balani is a multifaceted guitarist, singer, songwriter, producer, and educator. He's the co-founder and director at our Berkeley Global Academic Partner in New Delhi, or outside of New Delhi in Noida, the Global Music Institute. It's one of the leading colleges, music colleges in India. They send us incredible musicians, including full tuition scholarship students. They do magnificent work there. And he's an Ableton certified trainer. He's constantly striving to bring innovative teaching methodologies to his harmony, songwriting, music production, and guitar courses. Adi's work has been featured on the BBC Asia Beats, MTV Coke Studios, and BBC Radio, to name a few. He's collaborated with artists from around the world, including Shubha Mogdugai, Kamira, Shilpa Real, Sandeep Sen, Bellatrix, and Mr. Woodnote. Sir, it's a joy to have you with us. It's great to see you.
A pleasure and an honor, Jason. Thank you so much for having me here and with such great company. Great meeting everybody.
Great. Welcome, Aditya. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, let's just
Thank
jump
you.
right into it. And I want to direct this to our artists on the panel first, because there are so many artists on the call and who are tuning in today, not just students at Berkeley, but artists from all over the world. And they want to know, how have you managed to do it? How have you managed to thrive in the midst of a global pandemic, making a living with your music? Louise, would you like to take that first?
Yep, okay. Initially, it definitely wasn't a thrive, it was a shock. I have several, I think a lot of musicians are entrepreneurs by default. We've had an interesting journey to get to where we are. A lot of hustling. So I had an Airbnb cottage. I have a jewelry business, which I started 12 years ago under Louise Carver Collection, which was in various shops around the country. I have an eventing company called Carver Entertainment, which had deals with some of the top venues around South Africa. And I have a very nice live performance career. All of it came to a grinding halt in March 2020, like the rest of the world. No Airbnb, no, all my backup plans were kind of, I didn't know what to do, actually. Luckily, because I'm a writer, I have publishing income coming in from around the world.
Oh, Louise, I'm sorry, Louise, to interrupt. Somebody, if you could mute your mics, that would really, really help us to be able to get clear sound
Sounds
quality.
like someone's getting murdered, but
Something's going on back there. I don't know what it is, but if you could all mute your mics, that would be terrific. Thank you. All right, Louise, I'm sorry to interrupt. Please continue.
So yeah, so I've always grown up, with a degree. It's not that I use it every day. A PPE isn't something you're like, well, I've got a politics, philosophy, economics. There's no like job for that. It's just life. So I used university as a life study. But I've always had other things on the go. My parents have always trained me well to think of the worst case scenario, but nothing prepared me for the pandemic. All my businesses came to a halt. And then I started doing, after about 2 weeks of just wandering around the house in a bit of a daze, because I don't want to give this like I sorted it out straight away. I did not. I walked we weren't even allowed to walk dogs. We were on level 5. We couldn't even go out. So I looked at Facebook Live, and I started something which I ran successfully for 4 months. It was called the Lounge Sessions. And alongside a friend of mine who developed something called the Busker app, which looks like a barcode, which you could put on your Facebook Live. And every Sunday evening for the Lounge Sessions, I did a show for free. And if people wanted to donate, and if they could, then they did. They just had to scan the code on my Facebook Live. And it was amazing how generous people were. Because I don't believe in playing for free. Those days are long gone. I did that for for so many years. I just think it's not right ethically. If you're enjoying something, you should contribute whatever you can. And so I started something called Something Old, Something New, Something Borrowed, Something Blue. And I did songs along in that nature. So something old, one of my oldies, something new, something I was working on, something borrowed, I did a cover, and then something blue. Well, I've got those coming out of the wazoo. I've got so many sad songs. So then people could then, for the week coming up, they could like put their requests in. So people started getting excited. And that was a lovely kind of way to also help morale of people that were totally isolated. They could tune into me on Sunday at 8 o'clock for 4 songs. And then the other thing, thank goodness for Facebook Live, not that I am affiliated with them in any way, it was just a lovely vehicle. If you wanted to know how I survived and how I am surviving, is my jewelry business. All the shops obviously closed, no one could go shopping. So none of the outlets could do that. What I did was I got all my jewelry back from all the shops, and I started, and I still do it every Sunday at 3 till 4:30 Facebook Live. I am pretty much an infomercial. I go through 25 of my top pieces of the week of my jewelry. I'm wearing one of the pieces now, not that I'm advertising, but people can, if they buy during the show, they get less 25% with free delivery, and it's every Sunday, and it took off. And it was wonderful. The first time I did it, I forgot to market it. So I had 3 old men from some farming town that had no interest in buying jewelry. I don't know what they were doing. But then I marked it, I put some money into the marketing, and it really took off. So there's women that stop on a Sunday at 3 o'clock, they know, you make it, you know, part of their routine. They pour a cup of tea, and then we shop safely from the comfort of our homes. And it took a little while, but it's taken off. So
you know what I love about that story is, number one, you still, even though you were performing on Facebook Live, you still gave your fans the opportunity to contribute.
I believe in that.
Yeah, that was terrific, because you're right. It's really hard to go from making money at a venue to making money in your home on Facebook. But at least your fans appreciated you enough to continue to donate. And the other thing I love about your story is that you hustled. So you were like, okay, my jewelry business, let me sell it on Facebook too. And it worked. It worked.
It worked because people like to see a real person. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I think coming from a music video background, in terms of most of us artists have to have it perfect. I've got to look stunning. It's all got to be, you just have to wing it. And dogs are barking in the background, and you just got to move. It's a different time, and people accept it. They're a lot more accepting. You know, you don't have to look like $1 million.
That's excellent. It's take what you have. What about you, Jacques? I mean, how have you been surviving?
Oh, well, I've been surviving.
Should I call you Mighty? Should I call you Mighty?
No. just call me Popo.
Popo, you got it.
Yeah, Mighty is a stage name I got from a guy who's no longer, you know, on this earth. He's living in some other place. So yeah, I mean, I'm really having fun listening to Louise, and you know, I like that. I like the hustling side of her, but also she's also genuinely, you know, classic. So, I mean, on this side, it's really hard to talk about myself, but I'll give you a little glimpse of what I've been doing. I've been a music educator for the last 8 years. So I have a gig that is regular, running this music school that I actually founded. It's a public music school. We have 152 kids who are boarding. Yeah, so they are boarding. So even with this COVID thing, they have been in one place, in this one big bubble, you know, not allowing them to get out, even during Christmas time, you know. So I've been lucky to get a salary every month. But that said, when we got closed down, it gave me time to work on my own music again, you know, because I've actually put my career aside to work, you know, in this music field, music education field, because again, you have to realize that in this part of the world, even before COVID, times were tough for artists to begin with. So we have actually to think outside of the box, even before COVID, to get artists up and going and to actually build this industry, which is why we started this music school, you know. So now you can think about how it is with this time in COVID, you know, how it is like. But for me, I had a chance to actually perform live for this virtual music festival in Toronto while I was here. You know, it's actually online. It's called Habari Music Festival, which was great. And like Louise, I put myself back into writing stories, you know, that I haven't published yet. But at the same time, you know, I was very, very busy with my students. You know, we had teachers who actually had to stay on campus when we couldn't, because I live about 1 hour north of where the campus is.
Mhm.
So at some point I couldn't even move to go over there. So I had to stay home and actually, talk to the students virtually. Um, so again, I've been one of the luckiest to just have a regular job. In 26 years, I haven't had a regular job like where I get a payment for monthly. I've worked for myself for all this other time when I was gigging and things and recording, and it was a really beautiful life. Touring, it was amazing. I miss touring a lot. But I mean, over here we have to think outside of the box. There's many things we're going to talk about. But as for myself personally, I've been lucky to have this job and also to think for others. I mean, I have 152 kids that from which 40 have to graduate. I have to tell them how they're going to survive after. So I have to think about that.
What are their ages? Is this
from 14 to 22. So
okay?
it's more like your last 3 years of high school.
Got it.
In America or probably in Nigeria, and yeah.
So what do you tell them about how they're going to survive when they graduate if they want to?
They have to be, they gotta be creative. Over here in Rwanda, we have so many weddings. This is before COVID, and that's a place you can gig, every week. But you really have to be special. You have to be different from other artists, which is why the school is so important for them. Performances approaches. How do I perform my music? And if I have to do cover songs, how am I going to play them? How am I going to make sure that I get a call and not the next band? So really, it's that stuff that we spend. Our school program is really, really geared towards going to work. So it's more like 80% practicals and 20% theory. We really give them a lot of time to practice and to hone their skills. Practice, practice, practice. And we teach them how to teach. Basically, while they are learning, they can graduate and be able to teach that. Because we have so many people in Rwanda, for example, and all around Africa who are trying to learn music. So our graduates can actually graduate and go out and teach to a certain degree.
Wow, that's excellent.
Yeah, so things like that, and also to think about the next new normal, like the virtual world. YouTube. A lot of kids over here have YouTube channels, a lot of artists. Although it's not bringing them a lot of money, but they are learning how to use YouTube. They are opening YouTube channels. And now that we have Spotify in the country, only I think last month, because we didn't have Spotify before. Right. Now they're learning how to also upload their music to all those virtual music distributions, so they can actually make some income. We're trying to make them connect with the outside world. How are the Louis surviving? Those stories. We bring artists to our schools. Like lately, Teddy Riley was here. The Teddy Riley was here. Davido came to our school, performed with our kids. Tiki Jaffa, pretty much anybody who's around during this time, or even before, we get them to come and talk to to the students to see how they're surviving musically, and to get tips from the professionals.
Right.
So things like that, and we get to talk about more.
Absolutely, that's great. Jason?
Yeah, this is interesting. So Popo, you're kind of taking this in this direction of sort of, and actually you as well, Louise, this creativity and the improvisational sort of skill set, mindset that artists or anybody in the entertainment world has to have. And I'm just wondering, and this is for Adi and Godwin, I'm really interested to, kind of dig in a little bit with you here. What are, as you've been addressing the challenges with the pandemic, have you in your work or with your colleagues in the industry that you've been working with, what kinds of, technologies have you been having to learn or expand your skill set into using in order to stay connected, in order to stay engaged and creative and actually continue your work or to create new threads of work? Maybe Godwin, if you want to jump in first, and then Adi, and just talk about how you're leveraging technology at this time.
Well, a lot of Zooming. This was I think Zoom to a very large extent saved my life. Because what we did when the pandemic hit, a lot of the brands that I was working with for my clients put every single marketing budget on hold. So what happens if you know about global brands and how they interact to pandemic or global issues is they divert marketing budgets to communicating and providing info, sort of CSR activity that they do. So a lot of them just completely stopped. You know, when you have I had about 11 clients that I was juggling between different brands. And so imagine 11 brands just go, that was that was difficult for a lot of artists. And one of the things that we were able to do, and this is why I started talking to my clients, like, all right, you've got 1 million followers, you've got 200,000, you've got 300,000. We need to start looking for your real fans. Like your followers are great, but we need to start finding those real fans, and then we need to start figuring out how do we generate income from 1,000 of them, 2,000 of them, and keep yourself sane. Because around the same time, when the artist started thinking, okay, I'm gonna start making money from my Apple Music gave it out for free. They gave subscriptions out for free. Spotify gave subscriptions. So it was like, as much as you had these platforms, it was basically becoming more of an awareness platform other than a revenue generating platform. So we started thinking, and I had to also think out of the box, because then if my clients aren't making money, I'm not making money. So that was where the ebook series came from. I had to start learning how to use payment platforms like Flutterwave. How do I connect that to my website? How could people buy? Because what was really difficult, I didn't realize the level of attention I was going to get when I announced the book, but I couldn't keep up with the responses. So I had to figure out I had to figure out how do I automate the system so I can go do other things, because I was tired of telling people, I'm sorry, let me get back to you. So we had to learn to use that, and I was able to then take that to my clients, and then the the thought process had to change. So we had to start thinking, how do we help brands get their products to customers at home? How do we engage them? How do we create more awareness? How do we help companies communicate their activations and their activities? And that helped me also get some of my clients back to work, interacting with some of the brands and ensuring that whatever we were doing was in line with what they wanted to do. So that helped a lot. Some of my clients got back to work. I had to also focus on the education program. So in terms of technology, Zoom did a lot, because my training programs moved from physical programs to online and blew up. So I would normally have about 30 people, 25 people register for my program. When I put it online, we got 140, 160. So, those situations, but that also opened up to, it made me realize how much of a demand there was. Like, there's a lot of conversation around students, music students learning about instruments, performing, but there weren't enough people giving the business side, managers, PR people, agents, publishing companies. No, there weren't enough people giving them information. So when I announced it, I was shocked. I was happy, but I was shocked by the amount of people who registered. But it also showed us that there was more. So this year we decided to just blow it out of proportion and go as far as we could.
So,
Oh, wow.
so it's interesting. So I'm hearing that you know, you hit the wall, everything shuts down, and then you're not going to let that obstacle get in the way. You're trying to find ways around it, and in turn, you end up expanding your audience.
Yeah.
Because you found, it's like there's this audience out there that really wants to get connected with the information that you want to share, and then you're finding new kinds of information, new ways to share with them as well. And it sounds like, as you're talking about this, you're also your skills changed a bit because you had to start doing some things that you hadn't done before.
Yeah. I mean, I've always wanted to write. I used to write a blog called Managing the Talent, and it got a lot of attention. But when I went back into management full time, That was because I was tired. I took a break from management and started writing. I think for as I'm sure we're going to talk about it for mental health. Sometimes you just need a break. So when I went back to management, I couldn't write as much anymore, but I always wanted to write. But what would I write about? Talking to a lot of the students got me to realize that there was nobody directing, nobody advising, nobody, if from artists to business to creative entrepreneurs, nobody was telling them, this is what you should do. These are the mistakes you're going to make. I went to universities. I spoke in schools where final year students of schools have no idea what the real industry is like, or what they're going to face when they come out, or what they're capable of achieving. And it was disheartening, it was heartbreaking. And I remember speaking to a lot of the deans of the university saying it is important for us to get more people informed about real life, about what's going to happen when they leave here. And so when I decided to write, that was just what I wrote about. I was like, look, here is what you're going to come in and face. Here are the mistakes. So the ebook series are really 12 books, right, that I'm putting out. So the first one is called I Just Got Here. So that talks about my time when I just came in the industry. Yeah, just the challenges I faced coming from corporate world to the music industry, and identifying that there weren't any structures in Africa. So we had to basically swing as much as we could. The second one was what someone asked me, why are you here? Which is someone asked me in a meeting, in my first meeting, in a serious meeting, a guy goes, what are you doing here? The third one is the least stupid person in the room, which is about self-development. And then
I'm gonna steal that one. The least stupid person in the room.
Yeah. And then, the last one I just put out is called The Special Ingredient. So it's basically me telling people my stories, different situations, real life practical situations, and what I feel they can get. And it just, I mean, as Louis said, when you're genuine, when you're honest, people pay attention to it. People can see it.
That's great, man. Thank you so much.
That's so true. That's
Yeah,
so true.
Adi, talk about your experience, because the Indian music market is, as diverse and deep as the African continent, and you're engaged in so many levels of it as a musician, as an educator, as a producer. So, how has this affected you, and how have you been using technology to, keep creative, keep engaged?
Oh yeah, that's a big one. Because I think like what everybody said, it was initially a pretty much like a shock. Everybody was doing, going around their business and figuring out what they're gonna do for the next few months, and then suddenly this hits. And for the initial part, it was just sort of grappling with the situation, and for most people thought that yeah, it's just gonna pass. But then I think what we saw initially was that there was a huge sort of spike in social media activity. Everybody's online, and then I think everybody was excited for the first month, but then it got saturated pretty soon, and it was like everybody's online. You go on Instagram, and everybody is live. So I think it got old pretty soon, and then I think everybody thought that how do we make this interesting? How do we sort of keep the content meaningful? And I'm not just posting some random meal because I have to post, and things like that. That was one aspect. But when you look at just the diversity, as you spoke about, with musicians having work, like there are wedding musicians, there are musicians playing at events, festivals. We even have these horn sections that play at weddings. It's a really fun sort of thing. So a lot of work, got completely tapped out for people, and they was completely left out of work. And even with cinemas, short film shoots were not happening. So production houses weren't there. So even composers, they were just struggling to find work. Whatever, films had been shot, they were able to sort of score for that. But after that, even they were sort of, left, really, really in a difficult place. So in terms of technology, as we've heard, like Zoom was one, and all these streaming platforms and video conferencing was the way. But what we tried to do from our event, our thing was to create something called the GMI Tribe, where we wanted to create the like the music industry where in India and abroad, and find mentors. Even Jason is one of our mentors, where we saw that a lot of artists who are really busy touring, they have a lot going on, but suddenly they had time, and they were like, they were always open to mentoring, but they didn't have time because they were super busy. So we became the intermediary, created programs, created opportunities for young artists to have these kind of mentors, and remove those, geographical boundaries for them, and having them, connect with them, like somebody who would, not have thought about teaching, but they have so much to give, and they would have no way, to get to their audience, or share their knowledge. So we created programs with them, where something like the Artist in Your Residence, where we use this technology to bring these artists in, in the students residency, like a artist residency. We kind of created a fun word with that, but that really helped, because a lot of people, young musicians who would never
Oh, I think the power might have gone off.
Yeah, it sounds like, it looks like a blackout. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, while we wait for Aditya to join us, I had a question for, oh, I think, okay, I had a question for everyone, actually. As I hear about, he mentioned social media. What changes or what things have you been doing through just social media? I mean, I know Louise talked about the Facebook Live, but what are some of the other things you're doing with social media to stay in contact with your fans? Louise, please.
Okay. I think Facebook Live has been the biggest one to be live and to talking, and then the comments coming up and going, oh, hi. That's been the biggest change. I've always been active on social media, with Instagram and Insta stories, Facebook stories. I do a mail out once a week. So I, as a musician and as a gigging musician, I have always made that part of my morning with my cup of coffee. I do it. And then, so for me personally, the biggest impact is Facebook Live. That's in terms of income stream, a new income stream has been, thank goodness.
And Godwin, how have you been using social media to help your clients?
I've used it as a data collection platform. And I always explain, there's a question I ask about artists every time. If one day Zach just decided that he's tired and he's done and shuts down Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, where are your fans? Would you still have any, would you still be able to reach any fans? And I think that's a very important question artists need to answer, because if you can find 2,000 or 3,000 people who will give you $100 every year, not every month, but every year, and this could come in all sorts of forms, and that is a lot of money. That's over $300,000 that you could generate. So for me, it's how do you then turn your 1 million followers into 1,000 or 2,000 fans? So that's something that I focused on with my artists. Another thing that I've tried to do is also identify how to talk to the audience, right? Because one of the things I did personally was, when the pandemic hit, a lot of people invited me for live sessions, a lot. And I think I did 6, and then I was like, what am I doing? Because so I think every time we had a session, people would come in and ask questions, and I was answering, and I was like, why am I, this is free information. I'm giving stuff out for free. So I decided, hey, if you'd like to hear me speak on this topic, pay. Right. So
Don't start doing that one.
Yeah. So basically what I did was I basically set up like a little boot camp. And before the training program that had 140, that boot camp, with less money though, had over 170. Right. So people just came in and they're like, look, I'm happy to listen for a month. So I think we got to that point where social media wasn't just a point. It's a marketing point, yes, but it became a really important sales tool. And to figure out, how do I connect specifically to the audience? How do I know who's talking to me? And how do I find the people that will buy my music and buy it? For example, what Louise has done is basically cross marketing, right?
Yep.
So he's basically said, I'm a musician, I've got this fan base, but there's a likelihood that this fan base will also buy my stuff, my jewelry. And then she sold it. And I think that is where we've come in to say, okay, how do we now utilize social media for a revenue generation to optimize our revenue.
That's excellent. Jason, I see we have a few questions in the chat too.
Yeah, we do. And maybe this kind of like lines up with the next topic that we're looking to get into here, which is as experienced artist experts in your fields, in the work that you're doing, you've obviously found some great ways forward, but you also kind of know where there might be resources available. And for the audience that we have here today, a lot of the questions are around, in addition to the self-motivation and the initiative to kind of like drive myself forward, we all need a little bit. We need a little bit of a spark. We need a little bit of information. We need some resources, some advice. And we're just wondering, you know, in each of your markets, and it would be great if each of you can touch on it. Do you know of any, is it government grants, resources? Are there organizations that people should become a member? Or, you know, what are the things that up and coming artists, whether they're looking to work in the business side of the industry or as performing artists, producers, engineers, you know, in your experience, are there things, organizations that you belong in with, government entities that you're connected with? What are the places that you would tap into? And maybe Popo, you could talk, because I know we've talked a little bit about the work you're doing in Rwanda with the festival and the school. That might be an interesting place to start.
Yeah, definitely. Although COVID came to mess everything up, the first thing I tell everyone, you know, I come across to is to get money is becoming difficult from every source that was there before COVID. So now to stay relevant, you have to look for other means that can actually at least make you build your audience, for example. So TV, you know, we have in Rwanda, for example, there's more than 4 or 5 TV channels that musicians can use. It's really little compared to, you know, where you are, but over here it's major because we only used to have one national television, and the national television will give you a bigger exposure. So I work alongside some of the talk shows on national televisions to see how we can help artists. We sat down and built contents together.
Okay.
And then that's the content I bring to the artists. And it's been paying because people have started to become known, therefore they can get gigs, they can get called for gigs. And my students have jumped in, they have understood that really, really quickly, you know, and YouTube, Instagram, you know, because money is really hard to come. Money was already tough to come before from sponsors and from government. I mean, we got so lucky the government actually kind of put out a stimulus package to artists in Rwanda of 300 million Rwandan francs, is close to $300,000 to different projects that artists had to apply for, you know, and each artist went away with 10 million Rwandan francs, or $10,000. They can do little projects. So that's also a source that you can get money from. As for festivals, like I think Goodwin was saying, every major sponsor had allocated their money to something else during this COVID pandemic. So that was like, you know, really closed. Again, you have to think outside of the box for everything. So mostly to stay relevant and to build audience is really where we went to, you know, because that's the least you could do. If you can get money, at least you can work on your audience building, and that's possible. YouTube, you know, channels, Instagram, all the social medias, and also television and radio, because you can actually get a pass during the curfews to go to the radio shows. They give you a pass. The police will give you a pass to go onto the television show or radio shows. So you could ask for permission to you know, even pass the curfew.
And the television and radio stations will give access to independent musicians?
Correct, because actually I work with the radio talk shows and the television. So how can we help these artists? And a lot of them are looking for content. So they were really embracing all these ideas. Same with festival promoters, you know. So there's one big festival promoter, for example, here in Rwanda, you know. I'll give him a prop. It's called East African Promoters, right? So somehow together we worked out a plan how he can actually stage shows on television. But these were paid shows. So he knows how to get money from different sources. He went to the government, the Ministry of Culture. He got some funding, and also to the beer companies, you know, the breweries. So he staged shows on television, national television,
Oh, wow.
helping different artists. So we worked out a plan throughout the whole year, you know, with different styles of music, whether it was traditional music, or we just had to come up with different ideas, just different tricks how to get these artists to at least get that little money that they, you know, I mean, and at the same time we built content and some artists got paid. It wasn't much, but at least they got paid. That's
Adi and Adi, Louise, and Godwin, other ideas about resources, places where you would recommend. I mean, you know, Godwin, with your program, you might have some recommendations that you gave that you would be willing to share here. But places you would recommend artists tap into, connect into these organizations, or government resources, or other kinds of you know, advising and industry support to kind of create a way forward.
Well, okay, I'll go. I thought I was waiting for Aditya.
Oh,
What
okay. Yeah.
what I would do, what I would say is, the first thing artists need to do, register with your collecting society if you have one. The reason why I tell people to do this, for instance, we have two collecting societies in Nigeria, and I'm saying this publicly, that keep fighting each other, and they need to stop. What we need to do is figure out, as for the composers and the performers and the writers, what and the labels as well. What they need to do is start joining these collecting societies and being part of the decision making process. The reason why there is a lot of corruption and abuse of power is because the people who actually own the real power are not participating. These are the rights owners. So the first thing artists need to do, go register, because when you register with the collecting society, what that gives you is power as a voice. There's a collection of voices saying, so when you go to the government and ask for things, you have a body supporting you. It's not just you, it's like a union, right? That's the first thing I'd say to people, do that. The second thing I would advise people, because over here in Nigeria, we don't have our government funding us. We do have a fund, but the process of getting that fund is extremely difficult. All right. So what we ended up doing was, a few organizations, a few artists, a few managers have set up groups, right, where they basically support each other. And I think that's very important, because what happens is when these groups do well, we're able to merge groups, right, and build on that. So that's another thing that has been quite helpful. Another thing is, you know, I think in terms of for there's a publishers association in Nigeria, and I'm sure that there's one in other parts of the continent as well as other parts of the world. And I think people should join it, because if you make music or you are involved in a particular, I'm in a group in, there's a talent managers group, for example, and it comprises of managers from Nigeria and parts of East Africa. There's some Ghanaian managers as well on there, but primarily Nigeria and East Africa. And what we've been able to do is they've come to us to say, look, we want to put out, we're trying to do, how do you guys do shows in Nigeria? Right. And I've said, look, this is what you could do. So they'll tell me we have like 3 shows a year, right? 3 big shows a year, and everybody wants to get on those shows. And I'm like, but Tanzania, for example, is a massive country where you could actually find specific locations, do small shows, use those small shows to create more awareness, and therefore you can then pull that audience into a bigger show. So now you can have go from 3 to 10 or 15 big shows a year, right? And I think that is, all those situations help. Like conversations like these also help as well. In the States, in the UK, there are multiple organizations that are funded by the government. Over here, we've had to build our industry ourselves. And one of the most important things is we need to remember that that's what we've done, to build ourselves. And then when we build, we come together, and then we can approach the government. We can look at how do we lobby for how do we lobby for more? I mean, the constitution here is quite dated, right? So we need to have more we need to have an update to fit the current reality. So social media, digital platforms. We need to update our what's it, our constitution. So those, but for us to do that, we need to work together so that when we speak to the government, we speak in one voice. And so those that for me is are the best ways. But there is nothing more powerful than the collecting society of a country. When they come together, they can actually fix so many problems for the artist, whether you're a performer, whether you're a composer. That's extreme for me. That's the number one thing. Join, get involved, find out when the general meetings are happening, and attend them. Go on time. You know, identify what the criteria is for you to vote and make decisions, and vote and get involved, and that's how you fix it. Just arguing on social media is not going to solve a problem.
I have to ask a quick follow-up question before we go to Aditya. Are they trying to collect the organizations that are fighting? Are they trying to collect the same royalty or different royalties?
So basically, both of them are saying they're the best. And I remember speaking to both ones. I tried to do sort of not a mediation, but I tried to have conversations with the collecting societies in Nigeria. And I remember asking one, okay, so why don't you guys agree that one collects, let's say, mechanicals, right? And the other one collects, and they were like, no, the other person, we don't trust the other person to collect, and so we're going to take everything, collect everything, and pay. So there's a lot of greed, but the reason why that's happening goes back to the fact that one, there's a lack of information. The people who will benefit from this don't realize what they're throwing away, and because they don't understand it, they're not participating.
They're not participating.
Yeah, so that's the issue.
Tonya, can I jump in here quickly a little bit?
Yes,
on what Brother Godwin is saying. Talking about power, there's a quick, really funny but not so funny example in Uganda taking place right now. I was talking to a friend of mine just yesterday, because I was telling him I was going to come on this meeting here. His name is Slim MC, a very, very nice, creative guy. And in Uganda, artists have been trying to get into politics so they can make that change that Godwin was talking about.
Yeah.
And you had one guy, one popular musician whose name is Bobby Wine, who was running for president, and you had a whole bunch of musicians following him, trying to get into the parliament. Before he trying to run, there was him only, into the parliament of Uganda. Right now, you have 6 musicians into parliament in Uganda trying to make this change. I mean, it's a little bit of a mess when you really follow what's going on, but at least, I mean, they're getting in. And they're trying to change things from inside, or maybe change career completely. Yeah. And some others are actually completely stopped doing music, went into farming. This is in Uganda. And a lot are going into and getting into the politics now. There was some who are backing up Bobby Wine, who was the opposition, and some who have actually jumped on a bandwagon going with the running, president right now. And I mean, they're getting money from doing all kind of, campaign type, gigs, but they're actually getting some money. Those are, such.
But are they going into politics to help other musicians or just to kind of have an income?
They're trying to give an income, but in the long run, helping other musicians.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Adi, talk to us about India, in this case of like the organizations, the sort of resources that are out there as you're working with your students, with your colleagues in the industry. Where are you tapping into?
Well, I mean, actually, the thing with this, I mean, unfortunately, there's no sort of large funding, or there's no sort of centralized organizations that can help artists on a larger scale, as Gordon was talking about. Even in India, it's a similar situation, whereas you compare UK and other countries where, there's a lot of organizations that are set up for that. But what we saw is that groups came together, where, like, for example, an initiative that was started by Shubham Mudgal and Anish Pradhanji. What they did is they called Gift a Concert series, because, they have a larger reach. So what they did is that they had artists sign up with them, and they had a large roster, and then people could gift a concert and then pay for that, and then that's how people who couldn't, and this was virtual concerts, obviously, artists who didn't have an avenue to play live in the physical world, through their network, they were able to, find a lot of performance opportunities online and get that monetized. So things like that have been, really beneficial. For example, another Unheard Foundation started by Abhinav Agarwal. He works with a lot of folk musicians, and then he's bringing a lot of digitization to their music and their content. So that was, they were able to monetize that because the folk musicians themselves, they don't have access to technology and they don't really know how the legality works. So they help them set up IP, and then they help them set up their copyrights so that then they can start monetizing their content, their music, and their creative, output. So that's some of the things that we've seen.
Aditya,
And
how are some of
then,
the ways
yeah.
that they're monetizing though? Even the folk artists.
So, so what they do is that they, for example, let's say they would be playing, their music, and they didn't have any kind of digital imprint, like they didn't have recordings, they didn't have video content in the first place. So people didn't even know them. Now, through that, what they are helping them through external funding is actually getting that stuff out there. And then let's say we set them up on YouTube and their other platforms, then they get streaming royalties, which they would never know how to do in the first place.
Okay. Wow.
Right. And then, those kind of situations where they are able to create different identities for them online, which they have no idea how to do, because they were always working, just going, playing in weddings or playing in festivals, and they were, just had like a smaller audience. But through this, then they're able to reach, millions of people, and then get royalties with different kinds of, revenues. And then again, with other independent musicians and other kind of avenues that we would have seen working, for example, Patreon. People have set up a lot of Patreon accounts. YouTube also has this membership now, which we've seen a lot of people kind of get a very targeted audience, where they've set up where you can set up different tiers of membership, where if you have your what they call super fans, they can really be connected with them.
Every time he's dropping some serious knowledge, the lights go out.
Gotta wait for it. It's coming.
Louise, do you have any insights from where you are in South Africa? What would you recommend as you're working with younger artists and sort of guiding them to how to connect, how to network, how to get that energy to help them get an opportunity created or started?
Well, I agree with what everyone said. You have to be signed to a collection agency. As a songwriter, I'm signed to SAMRO, South African Music Rights Organization. They're very old, very established, very good. Unlike in Nigeria, there's just one collection agency to do your songwriting. So then there's another agency which collects mechanicals, and another one that collects your live performance. Your SAMRO collects your live performance if you're the songwriter, but your oh my goodness, if you're the singer. So
Sampra and Capasso.
There we go. So it's very much separated and quite organized. I am very involved, and I agree exactly. Like, you have to pitch up to the meetings, even though they can be painfully long. Oh my goodness. You bring food. And I try and attend as much as possible. Some of them just go on for days. I mean, you can't believe it. I mean, we're running other businesses, but it is important. And you do, now most of it's online. You can be involved online. We've got a very nice new guy that is an ex-music lawyer that heads up, and he breaks it down into bite-sized chunks so that everybody can understand what's going on. My disappointment. So the first thing is to sign up. You need to sign up. And how do you sign up? Well, if you've got a song that has been released and at least pressed in some form, iTunes, whatever, then you can, as a composer, sign to SAMRO. And you can just ask. They're quite quick with answering questions. The thing that I was very disappointed about in South Africa is that it was very slow to react with grants. So today, and I can't believe it because I was going to badmouth them terribly on this panel, but today, about an hour before we went live, I got an email from them to say that my grant has been approved.
They knew you were coming on to this program.
They knew. So there were 100 of us that got approved. But apart from giving blood samples, wow, you've got to give, and it's good because there's no room for any kind of dubious behavior. You've got to give samples of what, because I'm working on my 7th album, and you've got to give samples of what you've been working on. You have got to have a letter from your producers, your production team. I already released a single in November, so I had a music video that I could say, look, this is the single for the upcoming album. We kind of released it beforehand just to get excitement going. And so I don't know how much I got. I didn't say it, just said, wait, I will send you but everything had to be budgeted. There was no room for error. You had to write exactly what you needed, what your production costs were going to be. And I like that. I did the work. I sent everything in. It took about a month and finally, but it was very late. I mean, it's just come in now. So in comparison, PRS, which is the collection agency in England, they were very quick to hand out reasonable grants that could just at least keep the lights on, and you know, you can just pay your debit orders, and that was very quick. That was around April last year. So I was a bit disappointed in how long it took for South African collection agencies to react. But now I hear about Nigeria and other places. We're all right, we're okay. But very disappointingly, and just a bit of news, we had 300 million rand collected by our government for the National Arts Council. Wow. We could all, as working musicians, apply. And wow, it took me a long time to get it because I had an April tour cancelled, 2020. I was going to 12 venues around South Africa, and you had to put in the venue capacity. The management of the restaurant had to obviously sign and say, yes, she was booked for this date, what the ticket price was, and you had to get an affidavit from the police to say this is valid, true information. So it was a lot of work. And all of us, all my friends, my co-workers, guitarists, whoever were session musos, we all did it, we had it in. And then crickets, nothing. We didn't hear nothing. 300 million rand sitting on it. Where is it? So about 3 weeks ago, front page news, a few key players, some very dubious behavior came through. 10 million went to this guy and his girlfriend, who asked for 2 million rand to set up exactly what Popo's doing, which is an education program for young musicians. She bought a car. There's a picture of her with the car. So I did shed a tear. I drank a lot of wine. I'm fine with not getting it, but that it must go to the people. It must go then to musicians that are going to use it to live. You know, I just needed to fund new projects, but it was very heartbreaking. Unfortunately, in South Africa, we're going through a horrible transition period where everything seems to be misused funds. I know we're going to get through it as a country, but it's a really awful time. It's not a really proud moment, but we've come through worse, so we'll get there. But 300 million, poof, no one knows where it's gone except for a couple people. Sad.
Oh, that is sad. That is so sad.
Actually.
I hate to hear that, and I hate to hear about the corruption, but you know, living here in the United States, who are we to talk? That's for sure.
Yeah, you've been through a lot.
We don't want to tread down that path right now.
We don't want to go down that path. Okay.
No. We actually want to go in another direction, right, Tonya?
Yes, we want to go in another direction. Yes, thank you, Jason. Don't get me started. We want to go to some of the questions because we're getting so many wonderful questions in the chat, and I would love for those of you who are posting your questions to come on screen. The first one I saw, it's hard for me to scroll backwards, Jason.
I'm seeing a really great question from Alicia Johnson. If Alicia's here, if you want to come on, if you're still in the session, just scrolling through here.
Yeah, and then Godwin has several students on the and alums.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. So whoever, is it Alicia you said, Jason?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead with your question.
All right, hello everyone.
Hello.
Yeah, I was just asking to know when or how soon the music industry in Nigeria is going to be or is going to have a better structure, because over here I've seen that musicians or those that plays the instrument, they're not being treated well and they're not taken seriously. It's only when you are a singer that's when you're taken seriously. So I'm just trying to know when the structure is going to be in a far better place. Thank you.
Um, okay, so first thing you need to understand, structure happens because smaller businesses interact with each other properly. So that's the first step, right? So structure doesn't happen because money is put in. We've seen if money is thrown into a hole, it's gone, right?
Yeah.
So what structure does is it creates a base, right? So the first thing that needs to happen is individuals that run businesses need to learn how businesses should be run, right?
Okay.
So if company A learns how to interact with business B, business C that comes into that industry is forced to interact with company A and B because of the structure and the way they've communicated. So if I'm a leader in the industry and I insist that you give me a contract, when a new company comes in and they realize that's how it works, they're forced to also develop contracts. They're forced to also send out invoices. So structure starts that way. Now, that's how we build it, step by step, business by business. In terms of artists getting respected, I think that's already happening. The people who demand respect are getting respect, right? So you have scenarios where a fantastic, I mean, some of you may not know on the panel, but if you're Nigerian, you probably hear of a producer or an instrumentalist called Fioki, right?
Yeah.
Fioki
Yeah.
he creates riffs and makes music. If you want him on your album, you pay him. He agrees with you on, okay, your payment is for my time, but I don't sell my composition at all. So when I develop it for you, I'm putting as a composer on your music. Peace. Then he gets the split sheet, he hands it to his publisher, and they come after
Yeah.
you if you mess up, right? So
Oh,
once those types of behavior is introduced as normal, because now
yeah.
people think Fioki is an asshole, right?
I
But
am
once,
Fioki's biggest fan. If that's what he's
so,
doing,
but
that is
once,
amazing
yeah,
because it always
exactly.
starts with the artist. You're
So
absolutely right.
yeah, yeah. So once more people start doing that, it becomes normal because it's not happening, people don't see it as normal, right? So when
Yeah.
people start doing it on a regular basis, it becomes normal, and then it's no longer crazy when you ask someone, if I'm contributing to your music, what am I getting? Right? It's not a favor. When you make music with people, it's not right now in most developing countries, it's seen as a favor. You're doing the bigger artist is doing you a favor, but
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
contributing to the music. I'm entitled to it. So that's the second thing. The first thing, structure. So if I don't know if I'm guessing that you're speaking from the position of an instrumentalist yourself or someone
Yes.
who's creating music. So here's what happens when you're talking to people, right? The first thing is be clear about what role you're playing. Are you coming in as a composer? Are you creating your own music? Or are you playing as an instrumentalist? Then define how much you want to charge for that. Let it be clear. Another mistake a lot of instrumentalists make is they don't take advantage of the relationships that they have as well. So, as an instrumentalist, you play for popular artists. There's nothing wrong with coming up and saying, guys, let's work together. I have this wonderful song that you can feature on. So it is me, the instrumentalist, featuring you, the artist. I've created the music. It's my property. So I own the sound recording. And for the music I've created, I own the composition. That's another revenue stream that I don't see a lot of session musicians or instrumentalists taking advantage of. So there are many ways. So in terms of how quick we can fix things, it depends on how quick you guys are getting involved. So get
Yeah.
involved in the process, get involved in ensuring that these things are done properly, and don't and educate yourself, right? Educate yourself. Go, these types of programs are important. Also attend my program.
Yeah.
So and you
Yeah.
do these situations and you learn more, and then you're able to demand for when you know it's yours, then you have no guilt asking for it, right? So
Yes.
that's really my advice to you.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Brilliant.
Great advice.
Thanks, Godwin. That's great. And thanks for the question, Alicia.
Thank you.
We've got another question here from a person in the United States. And this is a question for Popo and Adi. They're really interested, they're excited to hear about the musicians and the students that you're working with. And I'm thinking that in light of the pandemic and all of us being locked down, is there a way that musicians can connect into your communities of artists globally to create? How do independent artists connect in with you and your students and the artists in your communities? Can you share some ideas on that?
So far, we have actually collaborated with different schools, mainly in Canada, because I have more connections. But so very soon, we're going to have a good enough website, and we are getting fiber, installed into the campus, so we can actually collaborate with different artists. We have already started doing so with different artists. Some of my students have collaborated with actually bluegrass artists from a different part of the USA, sending files. And lately, they've been collaborating with different musicians in Vancouver area. And we actually even done a live show for Douglas College in Vancouver, which we are hoping to be doing yearly. So it's actually easy. It's Zoom. It's all those virtual, tools that we can use out there. So if anybody's interested, we can give them my email. I can just put all those information to the data, and then we can start really doing some collaborations. We're all about collaborations. Music is this we're doing right now. It's collaboration, and respecting one another, and creating new works, new materials that could be.
Popo, how are you collaborating? Long distance. Are you? Is it Dropbox? Do you have some way of sharing the files and combining them? Who does that?
Kids are coming up with different ways of collaborating. It's just unbelievable. Even through Instagram and Dropbox, setting sessions, like all those sessions through any means that are there. Internet is kind of unreliable sometimes, in here. But when you find a good time when there's not too much traffic, you can actually send large files. Okay. Through all the means, Yeah.
That's amazing.
Adi, can you tell us about collaborations you've got that you're overseeing and you're supporting?
Yeah, we've had a couple of these as well, like with one of our faculty members, João Bittencourt, like he did one with Brazil and India. It was a project that was that took off really well with some Indian musicians, and then he made a piece for India, and then half of it was recorded in India, and then we sent files the same sort of way. And then we had another project called Alma do Brazil, where we had a lot of different artists who worked with us again online. Some of it was more performance based, some of it was educative. We had some workshops and those kind of things. So collaboration definitely has taken even a more probable note here with this kind of a thing. And I'd offer my email as well if anybody wants to connect with our students or with the work that we are doing. Please we can share. I can just type it in actually, so it'll be easier. So there we go. So and then we even had a Nigerian band, actually, Blessing Chimanga. They came in here. But they did that live when they were here, 1 or 2 years back. So these kind of things, we just sort of keep that connection going, and make sure that we have avenues for them to be connected.
Very, very cool. Other questions that we have, I think it's if you want to raise your little Simpsons-looking Zoom hand and ask a question. It would be great to, instead of typing them in the chat, you can come online. I think, Teresa, you've got a question. Teresa Etokudo, you're here. And Nandini, you're here as well.
And it'd be great if we could do one more question and then get to the, the big wrap-up question at the end. That would be terrific.
All right, so let's take one more then. That sounds like a great idea, Tonya, because we're at the almost the 90-minute mark here.
Yeah, Teresa, are you there, or?
You are?
I am. Yes, I am. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi. So, going by what the South African lady said, I realized that there is corruption everywhere. I thought it was only in Nigeria. I live in Nigeria, so I thought corruption only exists in Nigeria, but clearly it's in other parts of the world. So I'm asking, are we in support of artists, and not just artists, but people influential in music business? Are we in support of them going into public offices like Popo said happens in this country? And do we trust that they would actually make that impact required for creatives generally?
For me,
Louise, you want to take that?
it's a tricky one. I think to rather go you see, South Africa and Nigeria, we are different. We have different problems, and the roots of the problems are different. So right now, to go into government would be awful. It would be aging. It would be not good for your beautiful skin. I don't think you could tackle anything because it is very wrapped up in nepotism. And there's some good guys, and I think it would be a waste of time. I think the most powerful thing you could do as a musician is to go into one of the collective agencies and form strong kind of groups with other musicians and stick together. I don't think, in terms of my experience with our government, steer clear. It's horrible. I would rather band together with collective agencies. I know it's tricky in Nigeria, but if I really wanted to affect change as a musician, I would aim to get into the kind of the managing side of the collection agencies, get in from there and learn the business, and then come in from that power to talk to government. I wouldn't get involved in government at all.
I wanted to add to that. So the first thing, one of the biggest mistakes we make, especially in developing countries, is we expect that because the artist is popular, he should have a political opinion. And that is a big problem because it creates an expectation that's unrealistic. The creative is meant to be creative, to create music. That's the reason why most times, I mean, you have a Jay-Z once in a lifetime, you have a Mr. Easy once, but primarily the artist is a creative person, right? That's why they have a team around them that does the business. So when you talk about politics itself is one of the most complex forms of things to think about. It's very complex and it's multi-layered. So what we need to focus on, if anyone who's a musician decides they want to go into politics, the first question we need to ask them is how well they understand it, right? So we're not just supporting people because they're popular, we're supporting them because they understand it. Grassroots politics is that should be studied in school as a course. There should be schools for it because it's such a difficult thing. So that's the first step. I think we should stop putting that level of responsibility on the artist and allow the artist be the artist. Let them mirror the situation. Let them talk about the situation. Let them inform you through their music and hopefully inspire you to do something. Moving forward from that, in terms of engaging, there needs to also be education for the music industry, which is something that we're also trying to do, to teach you how to interact with government. So people don't understand how lobbying works, for example, and lobbying in itself is a job in politics. So if you have an understanding how it works, then it's easy to then find people who can lobby for your interest, right? So typical example, for example, is if you're trying to get touring into Nigeria, which is something that we're trying to do, and I'm saying this out because I need more people to get involved. So if you're trying to fix touring, for example, you need the Ministry of Transportation and Ministry of Works in Nigeria. And then if you're trying to get into health, situations like health insurance for artists and musicians and managers, we need the Ministry of Health. But what happens most of the time is people go and start fighting with legislation, right? But they don't get the support of the Ministry of Health or the support of the Ministry of Transport in getting their bills across. So these are some just tiny little details that we're failing to understand how they work. and we're failing to get things done. So politics, stay out of it, focus more on how do we develop our system that we can then use this system to interact with the government. What solution are we providing to the government to say, this is what we built, this is what help we need from you so we can get this stuff done? Because the government's talking to you and they're talking to the petroleum industry and they're talking to the medical industry sector, and it's too much going on. Somebody asked a question I just want to answer because I know we're running out of time. Someone was asking, as a Nigerian musician, can you register with Samro or Capasso? Yes, you can. And I know this because the COO of Capasso was a faculty member on my program last year. And he actually explained how you can still do that. There are Nigerian musicians that are signed to CSAC. There are Nigerian musicians signed to PRS, and Nigerian musicians signed to other collecting societies globally. But what we're trying to push for is let's get as many people as possible home into these systems so that they can start getting involved and solving the problems. But yes, you can register outside the only difference is the money goes from your country to that country and then comes back to your country. That's all.
Wow, that is so, wow, that you guys really, really, I mean, some amazing information. And, Godwin, you're driving me crazy because all of this business knowledge, the typical musician doesn't know.
Yeah.
They don't know. Louise knows. Maybe took her years, but she's got it, but she had to go through it to get it. Same with Popo. But the typical independent musician, that's why I'm so glad that so many of you are involved, Aditya and Popo, Godwin, yourself, are involved in music business education, because they can't participate. You can't play a game that you don't know how to play.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that. So our last question for you is this. What lessons have you learned? What are some of the biggest takeaways that you can take from these last 12, 18 months that will propel you into the future? And anyone can start. What lessons have you learned? Or I can call on somebody. Popo. Popo. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir.
The motherland, It'd have been either me, Goldwyn, or Louise. So
switch it up.
So the biggest lesson to me, actually, it's possible. Irrespective of what's going on, it's possible to make it differently than what we were used to. Whatever it is, however tough it is, we can always think outside of the box and trying to come up with new ideas of how we can perform our music, sell our music, by using the tools that we have today. So it comes out back to education. Educate yourself on what's going on. What is Apple doing? What is Spotify doing? How is YouTube making money? How is YouTube making money out of your content? How can I maximize my YouTube content to make money? Use the tools that we have today. The musicians, all the artists out there in Nigeria, I feel your pain, but you need to really educate yourselves, all of us, on what's possible to do. What are the tools we can use today to really manifest what we need and make a living out of it? We need to see what Godwin have to offer, what Berkeley has to offer. We just cannot stay in one place and say, oh man, I'm this talented guy, but I can't sell my music because rah. No, know what's going on, be relevant, stay in the moment, create more. But if you can get a team behind you, it's even much better. As an individual, no institution will listen to you, but as a collective, somehow we can make an impact in demanding what we want.
Excellent. Thank you for that. I'm going to leave the motherland for a moment, Aditya, and then I'll come back. What lessons have you learned? What lessons have you learned?
Totally resonate with Popo on that there's something similar. What I felt was that there's always a way. There's always a way. If you have a vision, there's always a way. And the second thing that that I learned is that you can never be fully prepared. You know, you can make all your plans, you can make so many spreadsheets, you can, you know, have everything laid out, but you can never be fully prepared. So I think that's one preparation that you can make is be, you know, be prepared for the unexpected. So that's one definitely thing I've learned.
I love that. That is great advice. Godwin, what have you learned?
Prepare for war. Nobody, the worst time to prepare for battle is when the battle starts. So what has happened, nobody can predict anything, as everybody has said. You can't predict that a pandemic is going to show up and the entire world is going to be stopped. You know, so what you do is, and this is to artists, this is to managers, this is to everybody. Artists, identify your fans, know who they are, talk to them regularly. Don't do this thing where you're a new artist, you're trying to look cool, so you don't talk to the people. You're going to lose, right? Engage your audience, build, ensure that you're giving them something. Stay consistent, but ensure you know who they are, where they're from, how you can reach them, know how to talk to them. Don't post if you're in let's say, I mean, Spotify is here now, but let's say before they came, don't post Spotify page, post links to your pages when 92% of your followers are in Nigeria. Don't do that, right? So build your audience, engage them, know who they are, and talk to them so they understand you. If you have a huge following in the UK, just a tip, you know, for Nigerians, there's a massive diaspora growing in the US and in the UK. In 2015, the African diaspora the earning power of the African diaspora was over $40 billion, right? So if you look at it in 2015 and what it's come to now, it's increased. So identify how to reach, build that audience yourself and talk to them. People who like your music, talk to them. You'll be shocked how much money you can make from 1,000 people or 2,000 people instead of chasing 2 million followers on social media. So that's really what I've learned. I've seen that if you don't prepare, because most artists, the pandemic happened and then there was nothing, right? And they had to start building their actual fan base when the pandemic happened. So that's something that I think I've learned. Prepare for war. Just be ready at every given point in time that something might happen that you don't plan or don't predict that you need to fix. And if you're not preparing yourself and oiling your machine, you know, fueling your car, making sure your tires are working, all these things, join a collective society, ensure that you have a group that you can engage yourself and support yourself. And more importantly, have a support system. It doesn't have to be a wife. It doesn't have to be, it could be friends. It could be colleagues. It could be a therapist. It could be your mom. Figure out what it is and have a support system, because there will be times when that's the only thing you can turn to, as the pandemic has shown.
Thank you for that. That is great advice. And lastly, I want to go to Miss Carver. What lessons have you learned and how do I get those earrings?
These babies. This is green onyx. No, it's not, but this is how I would do the show. What I'm wearing now. We'll talk afterwards.
Yes, we'll talk after. Yes, yes.
I think everything that everybody said is just wonderful, and I 1000% agree. The other side is that although I'm an eternal optimist, it's my mother's fault. It's not all been bad. I have learned that some of the things in terms of not being able to drive everywhere and go everywhere, like I'm a very busy person, have been very good for me. I am doing reinvested into buying home studio equipment, bought a really nice microphone that is good. So I am doing my 7th album at home. I have taught myself GarageBand. I'm not a techie person, but I have been able to develop demos instead of what I used to do, which is go to the producer, play my song, sing it, and then I'd say, look, this is the style I want it to go into. We'd start from scratch. Now I'm sitting with GarageBand. I've got a really nice microphone, and I am sending him via Dropbox or WeTransfer. This is what I want, plus reference tracks of whatever style that I'm going, and these are the tracks that I really think are working. And he's got a really nice place to start from, and I feel very much more involved in the production. So the glass half full takeaway is that it's been terrible, the pandemic, we know, and you can't take away from that. But the upside for a lot of artists that didn't think they were tech savvy, they've had to be. And you reinvest in some really good, and it's not that expensive, nice-ish mics. Learn GarageBand, it's free on Mac, and there's other programs that are quite cheap. Logic is not that bad either. And for quite a thickie in the tech front, I've managed to do some work, and it's quite liberating. So it's not, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. And I know it's still a terrible situation, but it has forced us to be a lot more tech savvy, get our together.
Yeah.
I love that. And I love ending on the glass half full. Thank you for that, Louise, so much. Jason?
Yeah, thank you all, Luis and Godwin, Adi, and Popo for joining us. And Tonya, this has been a blast. You and I doing a session together. I'm really digging this. We're going to do more.
We have to, yes.
And speaking of more, everybody that's still here joining us, you've all hung in for 90 minutes. So we know that you're completely dialed into what we're wanting to share. We've got 2 more sessions this week, and we're hoping that you'll come back and join us. Our next session is going to be tomorrow. The time's going to be weird for some of you, depending on where you are in the world. It's going to be at 8 o'clock in the evening, Boston time. We're going to be doing a panel, Music in the Age of COVID, for the Asia Pacific region. We've got incredible artists joining us once again to go along with the panel that we had today. We've got Terrence Long, we've got Jay Chang, we've got Julie Wu and Taku Hirano, and the panel is going to be moderated by our assisting chair of music business management, Christopher Wares, and our assisting chair of professional music, Dr. Heju Kim. So please come back for that one. And we've got another session planned on Thursday at 2 o'clock Boston time. And this one is going to be focusing on the Americas. And you can check out this link that I just dropped in the chat. The registrations are there. We've got Nanette Velez coming in from the Latin Grammy Cultural Foundation, Will Wells, who's another incredible alumnus who's toured with Imagine Dragons, among other people. Caleb Chapman, Grammy nominated educator, and Chris Cook, along with Ralph Jacadine and Toki Wright, our chair of professional music, going to be moderating that session. Please come back. We love having you here. We need your questions. We need your input. And to hear from these incredible artists and producers and educators and industry professionals is what we need right now to keep this momentum going and drive things forward so that we can get our music out there, get back out playing some music and get in front of the audiences that we love. So thank you, Tonya. This has been awesome.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you all so much. Hang around for just one more minute because Andrew, our webmaster, wants to get a group photo. You know, it's not like where we could stand on stage and all hold hands and take a picture. Now we all have to take a picture on Zoom. So we want to get a group photo before you leave. And once again, thank you so much for being, I had so much fun. I really, really did. All of you are some amazing, amazing people. And if you haven't already dropped your link to your website or how to reach you in the chat, please do so. Andrew, are you ready for the group photo?
Yeah, everyone, please turn on your camera if you wish to be on the photo.
If you want to be in the picture, turn on your camera.
Yeah, how do I do that now?
Oh, you're already, who asked that?
On.
Oh, okay. So turn on your camera for the group photo. That means you in the audience. And we're almost there. We want to get at least a full screen. One couple more. Hey, Joe Bermudez is on.
Yeah.
Yay!
Hey, DJ Joe.
My buddy.
Your buddy. Oh, wow.
I have one.
Okay, Andrew, we're ready when you are.
All right, look at the camera, please. I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Let me do one more. Okay, I'm gonna go to the second page. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Perfect, thank you.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. Give yourselves a hand. Thank you so
Really
much.
good to meet
Thank you
everyone.
to
Awesome.
learn and to
Thank
get this
everybody.
kind of knowledge, which is so important. What it shows is that you really want to understand this business that you are a part of, and we appreciate that. So from Berklee College of Music, enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Lots of love.
Take care, guys.
Thank
Be
you,
well,
Louise and
everyone.
Godwin and Aditya and Popo.
Good to meet everyone.
Good
Looking
to
forward
meet you
to
all.
seeing you
Thank
again.
you.
Yeah. All right.